Saudi Arabia is the latest country to join the ever-increasing number of nations who are buying armed drones to help their military. The Saudis have started purchasing drones made by China because the United States will not sell armed drones to Saudi Arabia on what are called, quote, humanitarian, unquote, grounds. The U.S. will sell F-16 fighter aircraft to Saudi Arabia all day long, as well as tanks and any other weapons that they essentially want for their military, but they won't sell them unmanned drones because the Saudis are under the microscope from the U.S. for what the United States government calls human rights violations. Now, of course, the official religion of Saudi Arabia is Wahhabism. Wahhabism is considered to be the most radical form of Islam on the planet. It is overwhelmingly rejected by some 95% of all Muslims worldwide. It is considered backwards, degenerative, and sexist and racist. It absolutely is. Under Wahhabism, Wahhabis are forbidden from making friends with anybody else except Wahhabis. They are not to honor holidays in the United States or other countries, and if you leave Wahhabism and convert to another religion, the penalty is death. Under Wahhabism and Saudi laws, since Wahhabism is the official law or religion of Saudi Arabia, its so-called laws are derived from the Wahhabi interpretation of the Quran and the so-called Sharia law. Homosexuals are murdered, women must cover themselves, and of course they're not allowed to drive. Men can also beat their women, even if they're their wives, and to be blunt, they're allowed to rape women who are not Wahhabis. This is the type of sick doctrine that they have, to be very blunt about this issue. The reason the United States does not sell drones to Saudi Arabia is because of its reckless disregard for not only human rights, but human life in general. Ever since the war broke out in Yemen between Iran's proxies and Saudi Arabia's proxies for regional hegemony in the area, both Iran and Saudi Arabia seek to be the superpower in the Middle East region and that of the Persian Gulf, other than Israel. The Saudis have murdered thousands of innocent civilians by engaging in what Saudi Arabia does quite often. That would be reckless bombing without regard for civilian casualties. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are essentially tied in some areas where Clinton was leading until the recent fallout and backlash, which is understandable, over how she deceived voters and the world concerning the true state of her health. Trump is now in fact leading in key polls by as much as 6 points, and he is leading in swing states and especially among independent voters, where he has a margin of lead of greater than 20 percentage points. That's a hurdle that Hillary Clinton may not be able to overcome unless she pulls a rabbit out of her proverbial hat and Donald Trump implodes. Now, a lot can happen between now and November when the election actually takes place, but if it were held today, there's a very good chance that Clinton would lose. The entire presidential contest will probably be decided after the presidential debates between Trump and Clinton. Under the Obama administration, the FBI, according to the Department of Justice, and the Inspector General, who just recently looked into the matter, the Inspector General has ruled that the FBI has the legal right, quote unquote, to impersonate journalists when going undercover or conducting undercover operations. Naturally, journalists are upset with this decision, as is the media as a whole, with popular trust in the media now at historic record lows worldwide, and that's understandable considering how the media is largely controlled, or at least much of it, by big vested corporate interests, and how certain TV networks are in the tank for certain politicians. There's no question or dispute about that. Who can blame the public if they don't trust the media as a whole, or The media should understand that this is the reason why public support and trust of the media is now at an all-time low. Now that the FBI has decided that they can impersonate journalists with impunity, then the trust meter will only go down, and the distrust meter, or views of the average people, will of course go up where it concerns the media. Folks, as a media person myself, I would think that the best thing that you can do when you watch the media, regardless of who the broadcaster is or who the source is, just follow one simple rule. And any credible media person would not disagree with this. It's a simple principle. It's summed up in 3 words. It's called trust, but verify. Simple. In Germany, another riot has broken out, including violence between immigrants from war-torn countries and, of course, far-right protesters who are Germans who don't want foreigners in their country at all. The riot that broke out this time, though, was started by the immigrants, not by the far-righters for a change, or the so-called neo-Nazis. Angela Merkel's popularity in Germany continues to tank because the German government continues to mishandle the whole issue, and the fault ultimately does rest with Merkel. As a consequence, Merkel's party took a drumming in her own home state in the recent election just held within the last couple of weeks. Also, the far-right parties are gaining as a whole in popularity as the German populace continues to uprise against Merkel and the very idea that they should allow millions of refugees in from war-torn countries. Now, Germany is a nation of roughly 80 million people. It is the most populous country in the European Union. To allow as much as 2 million immigrants will disproportionately affect the population. The United States, on the other hand, has not played fair on this issue, since there is no question that the failed policies of Barack Obama and then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, to be blunt about this matter, when they got the bright idea to interfere in what's going on in Syria, their foreign policy follies or stupidity, that's a very blunt way of looking at it, has caused Syria to destabilize even further, where over half the population now has been displaced. Had Obama not decided to engage in regime change, trying to topple Syria's brutal dictator Bashar Assad, and had Hillary Clinton not played a role in that as well, although Syria was not a stable country before the Obama administration further destabilized it, things would be slightly better and not the incredible mess that they are today. Now, a few days ago, Russia and the United States, especially Secretary of State John Kerry, bent over backwards to point out that they had reached an agreement with Russia for a ceasefire and to transition Syria's leadership politically. Well, there's no evidence that that's really going to hold, nor is it credible, nor will it take place, because Russia's President Vladimir Putin knows that he essentially now calls all the shots in Syria that mean anything. The United States no longer does, and to be honest, never really did. The media has been, unfortunately, hands-off where it concerns their criticism of Barack Obama and his failed debacle in Syria. They, of course, are treating Hillary Clinton with kid gloves over the issue because largely the mainstream media, especially the big American networks, most of them are in the tank for Clinton. They do not want to see a Donald Trump presidency for various reasons.